Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Town Council meeting for August 13th, 2019. Please rise. Counselor, would you lead us with the first?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a few minutes. I'd like to just pause to remember Brian Perrin, who was Vice Chair of the Winthrop School Committee, lost his dad this past week, Arthur Perrin. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Ingman, here. Gala, Councilor Christopher.
Here.
Councilor Boncory. Councilor DeMarco.
Here.
Councilor Farino.
Here.
Councilor Conti.
Present.
Vice President Lettieri.
Here.
President Vecchia.
Before we approve the minutes of the meeting, I'd like to take this time to, first of all, welcome Councilor Rob DeMarco to his first meeting, our large councilor. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Yeah.
And also congratulate our young counselor here, Pete Christopher, who tied the knot this past Saturday. Congratulations. And I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the July 2nd meeting of the Town Council.
Motion to approve.
Motion for approval in second. Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Public comment. Yes, sir.
Peter Gill, Precinct 5. Speaking as Chairman of the Winthrop Housing Authority, if there's no objection, I'd like to read the letter that I wrote to the council.
Sure.
At the July 5th, this is regarding the Center Business District boundaries. At the July 15th, 2019 meeting of the Planning Board, at the request of the Town Council, the Board reviewed and discussed the proposed CBD boundary map 2019. A copy was attached. The board made it quite clear that the proposed CBD boundary 2019 map was not created, nor was it discussed by this board at any time prior to the meeting. The purpose of the review was for the planning board, for the request of the town council, to make recommendations to the council regarding the CBD boundary. After much discussion, the board voted unanimously to send a recommendation to the council to keep the CBD boundaries as they are now, and make no changes or additions, including Viking Gardens, to future deliberations by the council. It appeared during the discussion that there was a consensus of the board that Viking Gardens should never be included in the CBD. The state of Massachusetts, through the Winthrop Housing Authority, created affordable housing for veteran senior citizens and disabled residents. Viking Gardens was not such development. Any zoning decisions regarding affordable housing in Winthrop should respect and preserve the current use. At the July 22nd meeting of the Winthrop Housing Authority, after a lengthy discussion regarding the matter of the planning board recommendations of the council regarding the CBD boundary, a motion was made, seconded, and passed to advise the town council that the members of the Winthrop Housing Authority are unanimously opposed to having the housing authority property known as Viking Gardens, that's at 105 to 107 Putnam Street, ever be included in the CBD. Therefore, the Winthrop Housing Authority respectfully requests that Viking Gardens, 105 to 107 Putnam Street, never be included in the CBD. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else wish to be heard under public comment? Yes, Chris.
Chris Aiello, Precinct 3. Here to talk yet again about bike lanes in Winthrop. So thank you all for having me here tonight. I know I've spoken with Council President Vecchia, Councilor Christopher, Councilor Ingman, and Councilor LeConte about bike lanes. So those that I haven't spoken to yet, my apologies for not making contact with you, but I hope you'll be supportive. I believe there's a motion in front of the council tonight relating to a feasibility study of the bike lane on Veterans Road. I'm here in support of that motion. I believe there were also some letters sent to the council president. Hopefully those made it in. Again, I won't go through the whole argument for bike lanes, but it's a safety issue, a quality of life issue, and there's very limited spots in Winthrop where you can actually fit a full bike lane. So it's important, I think, in the few spots we can fit them to actually go ahead with it. I know this is a conversation we've been having for years. So this is one of the prime locations. It's an easy, low-hanging fruit for us to pick. It also connects us across a huge portion of the town. And when you combine that with the path through Lewis Lake and the ditch, it connects you to this high school and the center, and along your way to the beach, the point, and the Highlands. So it really is a central piece of a bike network in Winthrop. Also, I think this has been said in the past, especially in our recommendations to the council from the Transportation Advisory Committee, but there is a huge safety increase when it comes to bike lanes versus the sharrows. There will be places in Winthrop where sharrows are the best you could possibly do, and where those are appropriate, I think we should do them. But in this case, I'd ask you to focus on the bike lanes where it appears to be possible. And I'd like to also thank Director Calla for his help, and Assistant Town Manager Rodriguez as well. They've been very helpful in moving the ball forward in this regard. So that's, I just want to ask you to vote forward in favor of the feasibility study, but also just to try to, instead of having us come back month after month, move forward and just get the bike lanes painted. So, just paint, I think, to build them, hopefully not much more than that. Briefly, in addition to the bike lanes, I just want to talk about the Transportation Advisory Committee's role in advising the council on the MBTA bus pilot, or pilot program in general. It can be many different things. We've focused on buses. Chairwoman Wallers is here. I think she'll give the presentation later. She's written a very nice letter. It really goes through a few options Winthrop has to really improving the bus service in Winthrop relatively easily. The one thing I want to say is that I hope the town manager is successful with his ability to get a pilot program. Unfortunately, we can't advise you on his application because it hasn't been shared with the Transportation Advisory Committee. So we can't do our job for you because the town manager's office hasn't shared all the information with us. We've asked to collaborate. Those efforts to collaborate have been rebuffed. So I just want to make the council aware that we'd like to do a better job serving you, but we are limited. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else to be heard? Yes.
Vasily Malios, Precinct 5. So I just want to kind of throw a couple of ideas out there as far as the town possibly generating some revenue. I actually shared a nice little email to Councilor Christopher at 11:15 at night. But do we know who owns the golf course? Is it the town that owns the golf course?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to throw an idea out there. I think that the town should look in developing, selling the piece of property where the actual facility is to a developer, have them develop it, and then build a brand new clubhouse on the other side where the maintenance shed is. We have a big issue with revenue, outside revenue, so I think this is a nice opportunity for us to create some type of housing because we are putting a hold on the CBD. It's been a pretty long process right now, and we are hurting for revenue. The other idea is if we can't pull any more money from the MWRA, is it a possibility that we could go into some type of 5-year rotation of a plan for maybe them developing our streets? If they're not going to give us some more money, why can't we ask them to provide a rotation? Maybe Precinct 1 gets it the first year, Precinct 2 gets it the second year, Precinct 3 gets it the third year, and try and get on some type of service plan with them. And then the third thing I'd like to ask is, do we have any information regarding the middle school site? Are we still on hold with that? I don't know if you can answer those questions or for the middle school
It's
site.
not on hold. We've been working on it.
Okay.
There's a motion. There's been equipment and all types of items in that building since they closed it.
Okay.
And it's still there.
Okay.
We're trying to get it out. That's number one. Number two, we are doing a study because there's still a question when they built the auditorium, whether or not that was put on parkland.
Okay.
So that's another legal thing that we're doing.
Okay.
The third item that makes it stalled is the fact that we don't have it zoned properly before we put an RFP out.
Okay.
Because if you put an RFP out, the first thing they're going to look for, what is it zoned for? So until we get it zoned properly, until we clear up the legal issue, whether or not part of it is on parkland, we are preparing to put out an RFP in the fall, but certain things have to fall in place,
Right.
specifically zoning.
Yeah. I would just like to add, I think it should be a priority. I feel like we're constantly seeing a lot of our departments here in town losing more and more people because they're going elsewhere because of salary. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to generate revenue for our town and keep the good people in this town I can pretty much tell you now that the school systems, we could use more teachers. DPW probably could use more workers. The fire department could use some more firefighters, and the police department as well. So, there's a lot of factors here, and I think a priority for us is definitely for the town to start to generate some revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to do it? Joe?
I'd like to speak in support of the feasibility study for the bike lanes and urge is immediate implementation, if at all possible. As one of the elder bikers in town, it is scary. There's more of us out there, and people are driving faster and more distracted because of these things. I beg you, please, before someone gets hurt, we need to figure out how to get people around town and through town wherever possible. I think as Chris described it, you can't achieve perfection everywhere, but that corridor is one where we probably have a really good outcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jack. I'll get you in a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I understand the bike path a little bit better? Is it on Veterans Road?
That's the proposal.
This particular proposal?
This one? And it's on the west side of Veterans Road, where the cars park?
And that would be for the DPW to figure out.
But it's on the map, it's on your suggested map.
We can take the street, but
So
we
it's
didn't draw.
on the left side, or is it on the curb side?
It
On
could
the
be
business side?
It could be on either side, it'd be up to the DPW.
We don't have a design. It's just-
All right. So I
Jack,
just
this
want-
is a feasibility to look at the
Well, I'm
feasibility of doing
suggesting
it.
something, that they don't put it
But it's
on
Veterans Road.
western side, because the door's open where the cars park.
Right.
And I've been living in town for a long time, I've done many bike routes. I would never drive down that street on that side. I have my own bike route where I know it's safe and what to look for, et cetera, but I don't think it should be on the west side. The door's open there, people go very fast on that road. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes. sir.
I'd like to just talk 1 minute about the creation of the Winthrop Foundation. If you look on Facebook, there's a page called Winthrop is Worth It. And on the date of June 14th of 2016, it says, "A wonderful gift to the town of Winthrop. Thank you, Massport and House Speaker Robert A. DeLeo. Winthrop is worth it." Sorry, my glasses on. Sorry, I didn't tell you who I was. Dawn Manning, Precinct 3. Winthrop is worth it. Express our appreciation to Massport for donating $2.5 million to create the Winthrop Foundation. Vote yes for Miller Field. If I remember correctly, this money was slated to help the Miller Field project and to help burden us with the tax override, the debt exclusion. It came right before we went to the polls. It was too late. We were already going to the polls. We were already going to vote, and it was a gift. It is now part of a pilot program, and a foundation is being created. Thank you. In my hand is a copy of a low-frequency inspection from 2016 of all the playgrounds in this town, and I'm not going to get into every one of them. Several of them right now are not up to code. They are missing several inches of playground safety mulch. Now, you would think, since we have an overflow of tree branches, etc., that we can't use on the playground, even chipping them up, because it has to be safety graded, we can use it actually for our landscaping around town. And we could take that money saved on the landscaping and maybe buy some mulch for the playground, making it safety. But back to this. We are now entering another season that the Arthur Cummings School is rated a hazard 1 playground. And for anybody that doesn't know what that means it is a loss of life, a loss of limb, or a permanent disability. Now, all I heard for the last year is that it's going to be taken care of. Dawn, the superintendent sat up here more than a year ago. There was information sent home a year and a half ago by the former principal before he left the ATC school, Mr. Hardy. There's plenty of documentation. And now you're banking on the Winthrop Foundation that was going to start this supposedly this summer. Shame on every single one of you and the former people that sat on the school committee that know about this, okay? You have children every day. It's not just a school park. It is a town park. There are kids playing on there on the weekend. There are kids that have been hurt, broken bones, emergency surgery. How much is it gonna take? You're gonna wait for this foundation to be finished, set up? This should have been done over the summer. This should have been done years ago. Whose kid's gonna get hurt? Whose most important kid is gonna get hurt? Because that's what it's gonna come down to in this town. It is. I'm not lying. Whose kid is gonna lose their life? How much is a life worth? Because right now, you have it to about what, 150,000 to fix the playground? It's gotta be ripped out. You made all kinds of modifications after I was lied to, and I have it documented with pictures. And I'm not even gonna bother going back there because I'm so over it. I'm so over the lies to my face. And my emails not answered. It's pathetic. The fact is, you waited on a foundation being waited to set up when there should have been money spent on making the town look pretty so you could sell it to the highest bidder. And meanwhile, we're falling apart. The town manager, the previous one, said it to my face. We have $1 million, Mrs. Manning. Well, why wasn't that fixed? Can anybody give me an answer? There's not a good enough one. There's not a good enough one. There's no child is worth anybody's life more than another. My kids are out of this town for a reason. Because nobody cares about safety. You've proved it over and over. This council, the past council, it's not all your fault. There's plenty of blame. The past council, the council before you, people sitting next to me, there's plenty of it. It's pathetic. You should all be ashamed of yourself. Spending money making it look pretty fencing everywhere. Disgusted.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
Got a couple comments I want to make. Chris Aiello, Precinct 3. Just briefly, the development issue that was raised, I think brought up a good point. The conversation I actually had on the Winthrop ferry this morning with Bob Carroll, and it's probably old news to everyone here, but just wanted to bring it up again because it's the first time I heard it. Was he had this idea that perhaps the middle school site could be zoned not just as part of the CBD, but CBD2, so a separate actual area with similar zoning to the CBD. His reasoning for that actually made sense once he explained it to me, is that if you decided developers looked at the middle school site and wanted to do something different that didn't comply with the CBD zoning, rather than trying to rezone the CBD and explain one area of the CBD as higher zoning and one area as lower zoning, you make it CBD1, CBD2. If that's just CBD2, you say, well, CBD2's rules have changed. There's new zoning for that section, and you don't have to go back through and figure out one part of the CBD versus the other part. So splitting up into two pieces of the CBD, maybe A and B or 1 and 2, is a way to simplify it in the future if we decide zoning modifications are needed. It's just a way to kind of make our future problems easier maybe to solve. The second was I just wanted to, I meant to wear a t-shirt today, and my apologies for not wearing it, but I found in a closet nice t-shirt, says Winthrop Greenway, year 2000. I was a sophomore in high school at the time, so I just want to say that this idea of making Winthrop a walkable and bikeable city is not a new thing. It's nothing being forced upon us by outsiders. That was friends of the Belle Isle Marsh, Winthrop residents that I grew up with that created those t-shirts, and that shows this is a movement that's homegrown and decades in the making. I complain about having been here for 2 years saying I want a bike lane, but this is literally a 20-year-old project that people have been pushing for. So I just want to bring that up and say that this is a Winthrop-grown idea, and it's something that people in town have been fighting for decades at this point. So thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, Julie.
Thank you. Julia Rollers, Precinct 2. I want to echo what Chris and Joe both said about the bike lane feasibility study. You guys all know where I stand on bike lanes and bike lane walking and I just want to make the point that installing one bike lane or bike improvements in Winthrop is not about making Winthrop something it's not. It's not about making Winthrop Cambridge or Somerville or these dreadful other communities that are actually quite great cities to walk and bike in. It's about making Winthrop a great place, making Winthrop a great place to ride a bike, to get around in another way that's not driving. We can't alter if our roads will crumble. They're already crumbling, right? And second, I want to make the point that while striping a bike lane will incur some cost, and certainly connecting that gravel path that could be part of Winthrop Greenway 2000 or Walk Winthrop, all these ideas we've had on the books for a long time. It's just making these visions come into reality. Will incur some cost. We certainly would not want that to be at the expense of something like repairing the Cummings playground, which is certainly tugs at my heartstrings for the daughter who's going to be going to that school in a matter of years. But where there is a cost, whatever that cost is, I'm confident that there are ways to pay for that that's not at the compromise of other necessary expenses. There are grants, there's Kickstarters, there's people in the community who really want to see this go forward to make Winthrop an even better version of what it already is. So just wanted to sort of set the record on that and hope that we do pursue this feasibility study and see what we can do to move forward on things we've already talked about. Let's press play on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes.
Nicole Powers, Precinct 5. I would just like to say that I am also in support of the bike lane and safer biking and walkability in Winthrop. And I would like to support the lady that just spoke earlier because I do believe, I didn't know that issue, but I would, as a mother also of children, would support definitely the improvement and safety of playground equipment. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay. The next is a presentation by the Transportation Committee. Julia?
I'm just going to come sit right up here. So yeah, I don't have slides or a presentation for you guys tonight, but we wanted to present on some recommendations we have for you tonight regarding the MBTA Better Bus pilots, as Chris Aiello mentioned earlier. So I think you're familiar with the Better Bus project. It's been going on for the last year and a half, and at this point, the MBTA has now opened the opportunity for municipalities to step up and ask for the opportunity to demonstrate some of these improvements to service, frequency, infrastructure minimally. So the MBTA and MassDOT are together soliciting proposals to test these improvements, and the pilots can be defined as additional frequency, hours of operation, or new routes that require little to no capital investment from the MBTA. Because we see, well, buses are the only form of transit that we have in this town to connect to the T, to connect to the region. We have some recommendations that we think would help to significantly increase ridership and improve the appeal of riding the bus in Winthrop. So just wanted to take a moment to run down. We came up with 3 recommendations for your consideration and hope that you will be able to work with the town manager's office to put these into official requests to the T. And these recommendations that we're putting forward come from our own public outreach that we did last spring. We went to some of the hearings. We had our own listening session. We did outreach via Facebook and email. So this is sort of crowdsourced as well of our own expression, as also from the T's research in the Better Bus profile for the 712 and 713. So the first idea we have is to increase service through higher frequencies, meaning every 5 to 10 minutes rather than every 20 to 40 minutes on specifically the 712, which has a core route on Revere Street, Shirley Street, and Veterans Road, where ridership is astronomically higher than on other parts of the route. We're talking 350% higher ridership. And I think you have a letter in front of you. We have a map. This is from the T that shows where the biggest points of boardings and off boardings are, and it's glaringly obvious that it's the 712 along Revere Street, Veterans, and to Delby's Corner. So why we're running the same level of service there as we are to the Point and on Pleasant Street doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Let's see if we can step it up, and it doesn't have to be at the expense of the other parts of the route. But just to increase that service, particularly during the AM peak. And all this should be underscored by the fact that we're, I think, one of 3 municipalities in the region that has outsourced bus service, so the T does not actually operate our buses. It's Paul Revere, a private company. It's great that we have the MBTA branded buses and Charlie cars and all that great stuff, but the T has an enormous cost savings because of that. So we have some leverage and some additional competitiveness, we think. That even if some of our recommendations require a bit of subsidy, we can point out, well, hey, you already pay a heck of a lot less to run our bus service, so let's ramp it up.
Can I ask you a question, Julie?
Yeah.
So the increase for 5 to 10 minutes instead of 20 to 40 minutes, you're suggesting that during rush hour only?
Well, certainly during peak, that's when the ridership and the demand is the highest.
Mhm.
There's still times where you have to wait 20 plus minutes for a bus, at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And given the ridership, the demand, we think that that's unacceptable, and we get a lot more people to ride the bus if we increase it to 5 to 10 minutes, which is certainly standard on a lot of other routes.
Okay.
And the second one, this has been talked about a lot for years, and I believe the town manager actually went to a meeting on this today with Revere, and that's to pilot new bus or shuttle service to Beachmont and Revere, to open up that other access point so we're not funneling everyone down to Orient Heights, and get out of that bottleneck, improve service, and create service that doesn't exist for the Highlands, incredibly high transit-dependent senior population there at Seal Harbor. So this could be done either in partnership with the city of Revere as extension of the Route 119 or through deployment of smaller vehicles. One of the kind of advantages we have of working with a private operator is that they have different fleet. So we might be able to deploy some of their other smaller vehicles that could more smoothly navigate some of the sharp turns of the Highlands that a big MBTA bus would not be able to do. So this is an opportunity just to play with it, test it, pilot, see how it works. I'd hate for us to miss this opportunity. And the third one really is based around fixing the confusion, the complexity of our buses. So adapting these two routes so that one of them always goes to the point instead of both of them sometimes. So it's just, so people live in the point don't have to say, do I need outbound or inbound this time? If I get on this bus, is it gonna go to the point this time or is it gonna end by departments? You don't really know, it's one more barrier to taking the bus. People need reliability, convenience, they wanna have a sense of control of where they're going to end up. So if we could streamline that to get rid of this overly complex service patterns, even if it might mean adding another vehicle to make that possible, that's something that we would like to see the town explore. So it is important to note that the T is going to review these based on cost, and they should not require a lot of capital investment. We don't think that any of these would, and certainly with our private operation, we have an opportunity to be competitive. And then I just wanted to emphasize, even though we don't have the best ridership, we have best service. We have pretty good ridership. This comes from the T, and I bet it's even higher because a lot of times those readers don't work. Maybe not, they work, but it's better than nothing. But we're pushing 3,000 riders a day, I would say, combined. That's really good. We have, 17,000, 18,000 people in town. How many more of those people in town would be choosing the bus if it came every 5 minutes, if you didn't have to stand out there, or if there was a sign and a bench and a shelter? Those are things that I'm thrilled are finally going to be taken care of through the bus sign replacement program that we've been working on for years. Mr. Hazan informed me that they have the MOU between the town and the T to go forward with, just putting up signs to say this is a bus stop and making people feel like, okay, I'm in the right place. So those improvements combined with service improvements could really up the ante on the type of transit service that we provide, make our town more appealing to people who want to live somewhere where they can take a bus, and to make that possibility. So we know that the town manager's office is going to be submitting at least one pilot request, but we hope that you guys can work together and have some of our recommendations included, and we are ready and willing to assist in any way we can. Thank you. And deadline's coming up too, September 15th.
So what's the capacity of the buses?
The current bus is 45, I think. These are the new one, about 45. So it's definitely standing room only.
And so if it's increasing by 300, do the other buses only have like 10 or 15 people on them?
No.
Is it
It's
increased by
350% higher ridership on the 712 as it goes along Revere Street, by Governor's Park, up over the hill, Veterans Road. So there's that many more people. Way more people are getting on and off the bus there than they are on Pleasant, Washington, and the Point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so.
I could translate
I
that
mean,
into
it
numbers
seems
if I
like, well, if
calculated.
there's 40, that means there's only 10 on the other bus if there's 350% higher ridership.
So it's not in relation to how many people
It's
are on the bus
not
at a
per
given
bus,
time.
it's just
No.
in that over a period of
Throughout
time.
the course of the day, 350% more people get on and off at that stretch. So the demand is much higher
And
there.
is it
But the
10
service is the same.
Is it 20 minutes for every route? Is that about when you say it's?
It varies. Sometimes our headways are 80 minutes. on Sunday. Sometimes it's irregular and it varies, and that's kind of a problem. The variability is.
But at peak hours, is there supposed to be like a
It's
time?
supposed to be
15?
10 minutes, but
Oh, it's
between the
supposed to be
two,
10.
so if you're lucky and live along part of the route where both of them serve, you can get, 5 minutes. Sometimes they're back to back. It really varies, but certainly during peak, more than 10 minutes is pretty bad. And you see there's a lot of people standing out there. And another time that it's very busy is surprisingly late at night on a Friday or Saturday night, 11:30 p.m. I've been on those buses and they're packed. And it was shocking, but it's people who have restaurant jobs in the city. That's when they get out and they're able to thankfully still take the bus. But if you just miss it, you're waiting 45 minutes or more.
Joe?
Joel, Precinct 5, let me talk from the perspective of the T board.
I'll get you next.
I think that there is sort of really delightful response about ridership from the town of Winthrop. If you recall, about 3 years ago, the Transportation Advisory Committee argued with the T and wrote us a lot of letters and a lot of phone calls about creating an environment where people in this town understood that they were getting service within this town equal to the service that other towns receive. As you remember, we had the outsourced service with the blue buses that did not have the same fare vending machine, so the Charlie card didn't work on it, we didn't get your discounted transfer, etc. After that successful lobbying effort, we changed the nature of the contract and introduced the new T-bus and the new fare mechanism about 18 months later. The numbers that Julia responded are indicative of the fact that we believe that there's a lot more demand out there than the service that we're providing. The current service that we're providing is equal to the service that we were delivering when we had the old blue buses that really did not appear to be connected to the MBTA. So there is great interest in trying to understand whether or not responding to what we're seeing, the increase in service, might be a worthwhile pilot exploration to put even more service on and see if ridership responds. And I think for those who are worried about traffic getting out of town, both these ideas could be really helpful if we put more service on the current routes, as well as found an ability to put service out to collect from the Highlands and go out to the Beachmont station. Those might very well prove to be successful over the long term. It's going to be a very competitive process. Every city in town within 128 is looking at the pilot program, but I think some of the stuff we've seen in Winthrop we're absolutely happy with today. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Jim. Pete, he was next.
So I know a lot of the complaints that when I talk to people about the bus that I hear from people is that the routes kind of seem arbitrary and they've been the same way forever and that's the way that they've always been. Was it outside of the scope of your recommendations to include some type of, to identify new routes that might serve people better, or is that something that maybe we're doing at a different time? I just think that there's a lot of opportunity to really just to better capture where people are going. And we know because of the data that you guys have gotten over the past month that that's true. So is that something that we're looking at as well?
So that didn't make it into our 3 recommendations. We certainly have included it in, it came up a lot. It comes up all the time, the Herman Street, Walden Street issue. I think the reason we didn't end up putting this here is because simultaneously we're installing new signs, new bus stop signs. So if we're going to change a route, this needs to be coordinated. I guess it's not a huge deal just to dig up signs and move them, but it's not out of consideration, I think, right? That it's possible for a route change to be considered.
Yeah, certainly the T is looking at this independent of it, of this issue that Julia just described. So should we have different pathways for the buses? That's certainly a question. Don't forget the sort of the view of a corridor may look good, but when you're introducing a bus stop where a bus stop isn't today, you are probably taking away some on-street parking. You have to worry about the turning movements as well for buses and trucks that go along those pathways. Some of the alternatives that we've heard about in the past seem to be better, but there's always that inch by inch of fighting for pavement and telling folks that they may not be able to park along a 50-foot stretch of roadway, that really is a community engagement process that has to happen. So I think the right approach is in the pilot program to keep it simple and not introduce on the main line new routes. Try to explore whether you can get consensus of some routing through the highlands out to with a smaller bus, and therefore less disruption to parking and less concern about turning movements over to Beachmont. And then in the next phase of Winthrop's Better Bus project, to take a complete relook at bus turning movements, bus stops, bus pathways, because we've been living with sort of the historic stuff for a good 30 years here.
Town manager?
So I just wanted to note that we currently are in the process of tying up an MOU with the MBTA concerning our pilot project that came out before the initial Better Bus project last year. Included in that is the signage that Julia mentioned. In addition is the optimization of the routes, as well as looking at increasing services, and the town looking at physical structures for the bus stops as well. So items 1 and 3 on this request for the additional pilot program are somewhat being attended to in the original MOU that we have, so I'm happy that we're working on some of the things that are important. Like Julia had mentioned, I met with Revere today to have a introductory meeting about where their heads are at for this Better Bus program. The one that the application is actually for October 4th on. There's 2 different programs, one September 15th, one is October 4th. For the October 4th program, and we were discussing exactly what they were looking at concerning services to the Highlands and connecting the Highlands with Beachmont. We were talking about figuring out a connection between the 712 bus and I believe it's the 111 bus that they have that goes through town. But we are both looking at connecting those buses and how we can bring their service or advise them how to revise their service to provide service within Winthrop. Also looking at them in terms of the bus shelters as well. If we can. So there's no contract for those right now, so there's no company for us to actually engage with, but we have talked to a couple companies that provide the service that are looking to roll some things out in town if they get the contract. So we're looking to work with Revere about the physical structures that we would have at bus stops. If there's potential for advertising, we wouldn't necessarily want a cut of the advertising, we would just want bus shelters in town because we have no bus shelters in town. And then lastly, they're looking at their bike network as well, and we'd look at how we would interact with that bike network, whether it be lime or blue bikes, or how we're striping things and painting things and things like that. So we're looking to do a few things in conjunction with them so that everyone's kind of rowing the boats in the same direction. But we are, the 3 items that are covered in this letter, we are looking to attend to, and so the second item is specifically what Winthrop and Revere would be applying for together concerning expanding the bus service and helping people from Winthrop get to Beachmont, which is not lost in my office.
Brenda?
Yes, hi. I know some people who have an app on their phone so they can tell when the bus is coming.
Yeah.
Is that available to the riders in Winthrop?
Oh, yeah.
So they don't have to wait at a bus stop for 20 or 40 minutes.
And it would be
They'll
great
know
to
when the
promote
bus-
that more publicly. Yeah, I think it's been for years now, 6 years or so since the T released its data. There's a slew of apps, transit app,
Yeah.
where's the bus, move it, I could go on and on. Yeah.
You get rid of your flip phone, we'd be able to use it.
So that's good.
Yeah, there's countdowns, you can see
You're the
where the
one
bus
with flip
is.
phone.
It's an enormous improvement, and even people in Winthrop have access to
Yeah,
it.
they do.
Well, now our
Okay.
buses have the GPS locators. They didn't used to, so we were off the grid.
Yeah.
That was another reason for wanting to get these new buses.
Yeah, well, my point was because you said that the buses don't come sometimes for 20 or 40 minutes, at least they don't have to stand
Right, at least
outside
you
or
can see.
somewhere waiting and not knowing the
Right,
bus
I mean,
is
and we're lucky
coming.
we don't have extreme congestion on our roads the way that other cities do, so the buses are getting stuck in traffic because traffic is getting worse and worse, so bus service is getting worse and worse. We don't have that problem so much around the town. The bus is generally going to come when it says it's going to come.
That's good.
And the Beachmont line would definitely be right on point timing-wise. That's
Yes.
going against everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Councilor Farino?
Thank you.
Julia, do they have an idea of how long the study will be?
how long the study will encompass the pilot program?
The pilots?
Yeah.
I think they're 11-month pilots. Did I read that?
That's right, we'll
Yeah.
make a decision, so the responses are due on the pilot, so there are two separate things going on. The MOU is a general agreement between the town of Winthrop and the MBTA to help facilitate the movement of buses to town, additional bus stops, additional bus shelters, and better bus turning movements as you go through the town. There are 2 or 3 places where it sort of gets sticky. The pilot program is our biannual call for ideas, where we will fund the best ideas for about 11 months. And then if the ridership trues out to the proposal that was made to us, there's the high likelihood that those will then be adopted as permanent expansions of service for the communities that have been successfully gone through the process. This fall is the application period. We will have the evaluation period at the very beginning of 2020, so that we can then bake that 11-month pilot period into our next operating budget starting July 1st of each year.
Any other questions? Rob?
Julia, are you familiar, the Revere bus loop, how close to Winthrop does the bus loop actually get in the city of Revere?
I can provide you a map after this.
You just
actually.
met with Revere. I mean, I don't.
I have one up in my
Okay.
office.
All right,
Goes
cool.
to
Certainly
Bellingham
depend.
Street
Yeah.
over on, over in Beachmont, so
Yep.
pretty close.
It gets close and then it loops back around. I know we'd be dealing with what their loop looks like.
Any other questions by the council? Hearing none, thank you very much
Thanks for
for the
consideration.
fine work you've done. And Joe's here, can I ask you one question that's not related to buses?
Sure.
Okay, it's related to ferries. You know, I'm a big ferry guy, I've been a supporter of the ferry, but I don't want to be in the ferry business. There was an article in Sunday's paper relative to the Lynn ferry, trying to get restarted and so forth. And I'm wondering if the MBTA is taking a different look at things relative to ferry service in the greater Boston area because of all the construction and all of the traffic nightmares that have been taking place.
We've certainly been struggling to do that. There is great intent at the board, but I hate to confess about the board's inability to sometimes communicate with the rest of the transportation world. If you think about ferries from a official standpoint, you need multiple operators according to Coast Guard regulations, and usually a third person in order to service a very small number of people. So if you think about paying 3 people on the payroll, and you're delivering maybe, depending on the size of the boat, somewhere between 40 and 80 people at a time. Compare that to the red line or the blue line, one operator carrying 1,000 people, 1,500 people, depending upon the line. It makes it look like ferries are much, much more expensive on a per-person basis. And trying to change the thinking around this. The reality is the true measurement should be what is the cost to the taxpayer. And in fact, if you look at the blue line and the red line, maintaining track, signals, power, equipment, tunnel ventilation, integrity of tunnels consumes a lot of dollars. This state of good repair backlog that you probably have heard us talk about $10 billion, is money we're simply not spending to keep the system in a state of good repair. If we were to look at the long life cost, total life cycle cost of the blue line and the red line compared to a ferry, where the right of way is free, right? You don't have to pay for the ocean, you don't have to pay to maintain the ocean, it's just docks and boats. On average, it is our tied for first with buses as our most cost-effective life cycle cost all in method of transportation. The 5 of us on the board have been preaching this. Is the right way to look at it. It's a thought process that has been in the wrong direction for 25 years. I hate to say that we haven't cracked the egg yet, but our intent is to keep pushing over the next year for certain to try to get more ferry service as of July 1st. We need all the outside help we can, and we need folks to make this very same argument. It is actually less expensive to the taxpayer in terms of total subsidy provided to offer ferry service as opposed to it is to blue line or red line service.
Thanks, Joe, I appreciate
I
it.
hope in your writing to any member of the delegation or even to the MBTA, the DOT would be.
Well, the information you just gave me is good ammunition, really. I never looked at it that way.
We can get you the data. I'm sure Julia has it because Julia has data before I have data. But we can get you the data on the cost comparison among the different modes that we run.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Sure.
I was going to say I'm meeting with Secretary Pollock on Thursday as well to discuss this exact item.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, if I can find it. Correspondence, we did receive tons of correspondence, either by letter or by email over the last couple of weeks. We did get one from Karen Chavis regarding the Parks and Rec walkthrough and so forth. I'm not going to read these letters. But we got plenty supporters of the bike lane. We got a message from Peter Roach, Allison Dwyer, Robert Fiore, Lisa Plotnick, Kristen Gilzine. On the marijuana question, Dottie D'Onofrio, the CBD zoning map, the Winthrop Housing Authority, Peter Gill, who read his earlier. And on climate change, we got one from Richard Gill, and he also called me regarding that as well. So that's correspondence. Committee reports, Finance Committee and Capital Assets.
So Finance Committee and Capital Assets met last week. We can go over it now, or we could go over it under old business and Parks and Rec location. Either way, whatever you'd rather do.
We can go under old.
Okay.
All right. Committee reports, Public Works Committee.
The Public Works Committee met on Thursday, July 11th. Present were myself, Councilor Engman, members of the Transportation Advisory Committee, members of the Dog Park Committee. We tackled two topics. One was the dog park status, and the second one was bike lanes on Veterans Road in Lewis Lake Park. For the dog park status, we have heard that there is a significant high cost associated with the location of Fort Banks. We're looking into alternatives, but we know that both the citizens of Winthrop and the council consider this to be an imperative to get a dog park in town as soon as possible. For bike lanes, we'll be bringing some motions forward later on in the meeting regarding painted bike lanes on Veterans Road and a gravel bike path through Lewis Lake Park.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Millerfield Committee?
Millerfield Committee met last night in the Harvey Room. The discussion was about the ongoing construction of the field house, but a major point of discussion came about we're having an issue with getting invoices paid in a timely manner. There was, and it could have been with Biz leaving in July, there was a packet sent. The July packet was sent on the 16th. We didn't get a bounce back. The impression that we had heard was that the CFO was monitoring those emails. Whatever happened, it wasn't received. Would not have been as major an issue, but the packet was for $130,000. $125,000 of it was a contract with Gilbane. Gilbane was supposed to be paying Gilbane, one of the contracts that they were supposed to pay is R.J. Roberts, which maintains the field and does the cleaning for the field. One of the things that the Millerfield Committee did was we thought it would be prudent for us to pay for the maintenance of that field the first couple of years. So R.J. Roberts had the contract for that, or has the contract for that. However, they were not paid their previous contract because the packet was not paid. The packet was received on last Wednesday, was resent last Wednesday, was received on Thursday, with multiple vacations. Everything else has yet to be signed. We have a hard problem understanding why. And so the major part of the discussion was trying to get better communications in line with Town Hall, that we could get these packets paid on a timely manner. The other discussion revolved around the ongoing completion of the field house. As of now, the doors on the field house will be in by the end of this week. The HVAC is going to be started next week. The siding will be done by the end of August. The wallboard, insulation and bathroom stalls are in progress and hopefully be done by the first couple of weeks in September. And the plan is, once the vote gets back in school, that the children will come back. They'll do the finishing works with the electrical, as far as plugs and stuff like that, and hanging the fixtures. So that's where we are right now with Millerfield Committee.
Okay, appointments, commissions, and committees?
Appointments, commissions, and committees met last evening also. Present was myself, Councilor Boncory, Councilor DeMarco, and Councilor Farino. We discussed 2 evaluations, one being the town council clerk's evaluation, which we discussed her performance and gave extremely high grades in all areas, specifically her communication, her updates, her reminders, her willingness to always be there for us. But we are going to get a list of questions that we have agreed upon that I will be sending to the council to get everybody's opinion, and we will share those at the next council meeting. For the town manager's review, we had much discussion on the format and process. We agreed on an evaluation form and how it will be handled. The process will consist of the following. I'll be emailing out evaluation forms to each counselor. They should be completed and returned to me by August 26th. I asked the council clerk to post meetings for August 27th and for September 3rd. August 28th and September 3rd for the committee. September 3rd being in case we couldn't finish on August 28th, but to make sure we have the space available. The committee on committees will also have a narrative summarizing their findings, which we will do. The evaluations that we receive from all the counselors, or whichever counselors return an evaluation, will be singled. We will get to a single average evaluation. That evaluation will be shared along with everybody's recommendation. Everybody's evaluation will be on the website. The presentation and review will be done in a public session at our next council meeting, as we have done for the past 14 years. There was some discussion about the thought that there was discussions about possibly doing this in executive session. We want to inform the public that will be not done. It will be done in an open session, and accordance with the open meeting laws, and that is it. So each councilor should expect within the next 2 days an evaluation packet. It's about 5 pages long, and we, again, I asked, and the committee asked for you to fill them out at your earliest convenience and return them to me by August 26th. Okay. And that is that. Thank you very much.
Town manager's report?
Sure. So, just quickly on the ferry, it's back up and running as of yesterday. We had a high ridership, over 150 people yesterday commuting, which was great to hear. It was a process in eventuality with the engine replacement. It was right around $55,000, and we are talking with our insurer right now to see if we can get a claim in for any of that work that was done. But more importantly, it's up and running, and we're very happy about that. Second of all, our town-wide sidewalk replacement project is underway, and it includes the replacement of several areas of bad sidewalk from the Contract 5 project on South Main and Winthrop Streets. I wanted to thank our DPW department and our public safety officials after the work that they did with the microburst that we had about 2 weeks ago. That was a very fast approaching storm, and it did more damage than I think anyone expected it to do in real time. So I was in contact with Director Calla and both of the chiefs and the council president throughout the storm. DPW has done and continues to do a great job in terms of the cleanup around town. We unfortunately have filled the yard waste collection area. That said, we are still doing curbside cleanup, so if anyone leaves stuff out at curbs and contacts us, we will come and pick it up. Correct?
Branches. I don't know that we have the manpower to be picking up grass clippings and things like that, but branches from the storm.
Excuse my misstatement, branches. So more of the storm damage type of stuff, but we are trying to clean up the town to the best of our abilities. In terms of the Charlie card discussion that came up, there's two essential options we can do with that. The town can purchase a set number of them, and we can have them available, each valued at $5. This incentivizes riders to utilize the fare vending machines throughout their travels and saves them money. The other option is we give them blank ones that then they have to go and charge at an MBTA location, which would add a level of that. It adds a complexity to the system. So either way, we have to make an upfront purchase of some, or we get blank ones. We can kind of choose the direction we'd like to go, but with the buses coming through town and people wanting the availability of the cards in more locations, we are kind of open to a direction that you all would like to take the town, since it is spending money. Then as well,
Can you back up
sure.
on that for a second? Give me that whole.
So basically, the MBTA is looking to increase the locations where Charlie cards are available. So they're looking with municipalities. Are there places where, if we had,
they have vending machines.
yes, if we had bus shelters, would it make sense inside of the bus shelters? Would it make sense to have one inside of town hall or DPW? Basically, locations that are close to where the buses go, whether Winthrop Public Market, for example. Any place can have them that wants them. So they're starting to lean on municipalities a little bit more to say, can you make them more available in terms of civic good, essentially. So
you can put one right under your awning.
So then, basically, as the town, we can have them available. That said, do we want to make an investment so there's a small amount of money on them that people then purchase them for? We then get into the interchange of money, which we may not want to. Or is it the ones that have no value on them, we have them, and then people have to make the additional step to put the value on them? Adding us into the mix of it with people who want to use credit cards and things like that could complicate it a little bit. So
I think looking for locations in town to put a vending machine would probably be the best.
So and that's another thing that we're going to look at exploring with Revere too, is that these modern companies with the shelters may have the opportunity to have the solar roofs built into them so that those machines could be there and working in real time. The electric connection to it is somewhat of an issue as well. So we're looking, but this is a way to kind of jumpstart it, that we could have some available in the library and town hall and some other places in town. So
Judy, you want to?
Isn't it specific to libraries?
So libraries is how it first came up, but we would have them in town hall and other
Yeah, I mean, they
buildings
should
as
be
well.
everywhere, but I wasn't sure if it was limited that way. And
No.
wouldn't we be reimbursed? I mean, make the upfront investment of $5 a card, but then somebody buys the card.
Yeah, no, we would sell them. So it's
Yeah.
one of those, do we want to make the buy-in that way, or do we want to get the blank ones? Like I said, I'm agnostic to it. There are issues and benefits in either direction, I would say.
You can't ride a bus with a blank card. That's the
Right.
problem.
It probably creates a data security issue though, is that?
If we're using credit, if people are trying to pay with credit cards, those types of things, it's another form of cash to hold somewhere that then we're accountable for. So it just can add a layer of liability to the town, that if we're fine with taking on, we could take it on if need be.
And you can't load money onto the card when you are on the bus. It's not.
Not on the bus.
Yes, you know.
You can actually. Yeah,
I do it
You're
all the
supposed
time.
to. Yeah.
I think if you have a monthly pass.
No, you can use the card.
If you have a
can
Charlie
tap it.
card, you can load money onto it right there.
On the bus?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
You can.
It's a process.
It's only cash and it's not
Yeah, so
cards,
you're
but
using
yeah.
cash.
Yeah, you can only do it with cash.
Yeah.
But
And that
you
slows
can
everything
do it.
down.
It does slow everything down. It's not convenient, but you can't do it.
AFC 2.0 is coming. It's
Okay.
gonna be a while, but.
Okay. And then circling back with the Miller Field stuff, when the Miller Field committee met in June, I had written a letter to the committee concerning my interest in some of their actions concerning the shed being built there and things like that. One thing that has been expressed to me again is that I just want to make sure I say publicly, and if the council is comfortable with it, communicating with the Miller Field committee, that we still have those tennis courts there that need attention, and from my perspective, I think that funding to the Miller Field Committee and how it was borrowed could potentially be utilized on tennis courts, as well as the shed that was demolished in the construction of Miller Field. Both of those items, I think, I have endorsed them, and I will continue to endorse them to the Millerfield Committee. But I think it would take an additional step if the council made some type of endorsement or resolution concerning it over the next month or something like that, if you all saw fit in that. Otherwise, that is all from my perspective, unless, Steve, did you have anything else to add into it?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go back to the waste, waste facility. We've got a major problem there. I mean, it's unsafe. We can't meet our environmental setbacks at this point. That's why it was the responsible thing to close the facility. I do want to remind you, back in 2016, the council voted 2 consecutive years of haul-out funds. The first one was $150,000. The second one was supposed to be $150,000, and then $40,000 thereafter to maintain the facility. We only got the first $150,000. That happened back in 2016. It was never funded after that. So now we've already done 4 seasons, put us back to square one. So we were starting this season almost to full capacity. The microburst put us right over the edge. So you can't go in there safely. We can't have vehicular traffic. You can't turn around safely in there. That's why we shut it down. But if we don't come up with a way to fund the haul out and get this facility open, you're going to start seeing illegal dumping all over the place. DPW certainly can't go around house to house and pick up grass clippings and branches. That stuff's going to start finding its way to playgrounds, parks, marsh. So these are obviously, you know, my concerns. They're going to ultimately be my problems, but the town is going to recognize this stuff around town if we don't make a move fairly quickly.
I echo Steve's sentiments with that.
So it wasn't in the budget, or it wasn't in the budget?
So it's in the capital plan, and it's as one of the items to potentially be funded by the Winthrop Foundation. Once the Winthrop Foundation is accepting applications for where money would be spent, the school department, along with the town, would be applying for the playground across the street that was discussed earlier tonight, this haul out as well, and then work, the library trustees would be applying for work on the library roof as well. So this is, you know, this is kind of like a funding schedule issue that we could go the route if the council saw fit to make an emergency appropriation, the type of thing that could cover it. It is $150,000 haul-out project, so it is a fair amount of money, and larger scale amount of money. So it's something that the council previously had voted to approve, yet didn't fund in the second year, as Steve had mentioned. So it is something that is totally necessary, and it's right now, Steve is completely correct, it's unsafe the way it
I
currently
get more
is.
phone calls on it than anything else right now. People, you know, one gentleman called me up, he says, I've got 6 barrels, I had to buy another barrel and put it in my garage. It usually just goes down and dumps it, so
yeah,
we need to address it.
Absolutely.
Yes, Rob?
Steve, you remember the bonfires we used to have on the 3rd of July down the point? Is it possible to move the trees and whatever came down? Is it possible to put it somewhere environmentally safe and under the supervision of the fire department, burn it?
I don't know about moving it, Rob. I mean, it took us weeks now to compile it. I'm sure that there's permitting. If it's a planned burn, I mean, things happen, right?
Yeah.
You know, fires happen. But if you're going to plan a burn there, you're going to have to get environmental permission.
Sure.
You know, local Concom. I mean, you're in an ACEC there. We have very strict permit requirements on how we maintain that facility. I don't think a controlled burn is allowable under our current permit. In fact, I know it's not. We have had fires up there in the past, and they're a very serious thing. They can spread very quickly to the marsh, which is abutting it.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be, I certainly wouldn't, I don't want to speak for the fire chief, but I wouldn't think it would be the appropriate place in that area to do something like that.
Okay.
And that's not the only problem. I mean, we do have a surplus of branches, but I offer it to all of you. I'll gladly take you for a tour up there. Because, I mean, that's just the first thing you see is the pile of branches from the recent storm. But we have, you know, tens of thousands of cubic yards of partially composted material, you know, just years of debris. We had this problem 4 years ago. We started to haul it out. We didn't follow through, and now we're back to where we started 4 years ago. So we gotta get this stuff hauled out, and we have to fund that 40,000 or so a year to get rid of the season's clippings, because that's what accumulates every year.
And the ultimate intent too with the zero waste project that we'd be doing too is potentially utilizing that space and having a composting company utilizing it, so they would be flipping out this material more frequently. And hopefully we ultimately wouldn't even have the $40,000 cost. We would just be providing material and space for another entity to operate out of. That, and that would be great, but we're just not at that point at this point in time.
Good. Have we made any efforts to contact any kind of independent contractors that are looking for clean fill?
It's not clean fill.
It's not clean?
It's yard waste, it's grass clippings.
Well, I mean, isn't that biodegradable, so it technically is clean? You know what I'm saying?
It's unprocessed, so there's still gonna be a trucking. You might have somebody take it, but you're gonna pay for the trucking, which is what I'm asking for the money for. You're not gonna come and take the expense of moving that material to them. If it was finished product, absolutely. But we stopped running that compost years ago because we didn't have the personnel to do it. That's a process in itself. It's dedicating, 3 to 4 men a week with equipment up there, constantly turning these things.
I remember when they initiated
Yeah.
it.
So we turned it into a transfer station, essentially, a drop-off facility that we would haul out. Unfortunately, the year after we made it this transfer station, we stopped funding the haul-out. So kind of got back to the point that we need to fund it and stay on it.
Yes.
These weather events seem to be happening more and more frequently, and
Coming into hurricane season.
Yeah, and it's probably not going to get better in the next couple months. One of the issues that I've been heard from a lot of people in the community about is the flooding that continues to happen in the center specifically. And when that happens, cars drive through the center and essentially creates like a tidal wave and hits people's businesses. Like we're talking 6-7 feet high. And I think it creates a public safety issue to have tidal waves coming through people's neighborhoods like that. And I don't know if we've considered this, but I think it would be good if we maybe for a short period of time while the water left the center area to shut those roads down so that this isn't something that, the way you're not having cars coming through there and just blasting businesses and people's homes and everything while that's all going on. So
You're talking about during the event?
Talking about?
Yeah. You're talking about during the event down the center?
Yeah, it only lasts for about an hour or two, but there's puddling that gets so bad that when a car drives through there, it creates a wave.
Where would it be? Where would it
the bottom of Somerset Ave, all those businesses on the left side, even over onto the side with the Pizza Center and Blackstrap as well. That's areas that are constantly being hit by these floods, and the cars are just exacerbating the problem.
Very easy to close a road. I don't have a problem with that. Typically the police contact us when they want road closures, when they get the calls. We can certainly do that. I would suggest getting the buy-in of business owners because it will.
Yeah.
Some may be for, some may not. Now you're shutting off access to their.
Yeah, and I'm not saying long term. It's the flooding usually only lasts for a couple hours, but it does make the issue worse when somebody drives through it.
Jim? So a couple things. On the compost. So we had in the budget $150,000 from the Winthrop Foundation. And for the next 4 years, we have $50,000 from the Winthrop Foundation. So I'm assuming we're saying, and we have $200,000 for the Winthrop Foundation for the playground. So are we saying these are delayed because they're having trouble starting this? I mean, the foundation started, I know they've had meetings.
The initial $150,000 was intended to come from the Winthrop Foundation in this case.
Well,
The
the
subsequent years weren't Winthrop Foundation. They weren't supposed to be Winthrop Foundation.
It is Winthrop Foundation.
Well, that's incorrect because
That's
it's
the plan.
it's $500,000 a year. So
Right.
there's other things that are edited in that as well. So that's not the intent of it. It would be a capital item that every year should be paid for in the event that we can't find another servicer to take care of it for us.
I guess my point is, if we have, and you're saying that, it wasn't supposed to be capital from the Massport money next year, but, and you're saying there's things that might be. what I'm saying is, why can't we take some of the things, like some of the software and stuff that we were gonna do this year, and get that done, so we can open the composting pile? There's money in capital plan that we can do this. We're just choosing to you're choosing to reallocate it in different
No,
ways, but I
I'm
think.
not choosing to reallocate it, it's how it's accounted for. So we could explore it, but like we've given answers previously about how the capital plan is financed, we don't just rejigger things as we go around.
Well, this is just affecting the townspeople in a very dramatic way at a terrible time of the year, and.
I understand
close
that.
the
So another
compost pile
way we could
so
go
we can
about
buy
this
some
as
software
well is,
programs.
no,
It's
no,
kind
no,
of
no.
ridiculous.
We're not choosing software over.
Oh, we
cleaning
are,
this
because the
stuff
money's
up.
in the capital.
No,
plan.
we haven't, nope, we haven't signed a fair amount of those contracts, so.
Well, that's what I'm saying, why
we're
can't
not
we
on it.
utilize that money now for the compost and then use
Is
the Winthrop
more
Foundation?
prudent way that the council can do this is the council can make an emergency motion to move money that would make it completely applicable to this, and then that money would be recouped from the Winthrop Foundation. That's the cleanest and easiest way of doing it. The way you're talking about it is basically ripping apart a capital plan that has multiple variables with it, because every project that would be entered into it could be on the table to be rediscussed. So anything that we have in there should be up for discussion, not just items that I may be proposing. So the cleaner way and the easier way and the path of least resistance would be you all making an emergency motion to move money from free cash or something like that to cover it, rather than pulling apart the whole capital plan.
Well,
I'll make a motion to take $150,000 from free cash to allocate money for the disposal of the waste.
Motion has been made. Do I hear a second?
from free cash,
Second?
where's the free
Just a
cash
minute,
balance?
just a minute. The motion has been made. Has been seconded? Yes, okay. Discussion on the motion.
What's the balance in free cash? There is no free cash, I mean, it's.
We don't have the certified cash,
Right.
free cash from 2019 yet.
Right, so we have no money to, there is no free cash right now to.
We have capital stabilization, we have.
Right, there are
multiple
other
funding
sources, but
So
free
capital
cash isn't one of them.
stabilization could be another source if you'd like to amend the motion. Same intent.
Do you want to amend it from
Do I hear an amendment to the motion?
capital stabilization, take it from there?
Okay.
I'll second.
Amendment has been seconded. Any discussion on the amendment?
Discussion.
Discussion on the amendment.
So if we're making this an emergency motion, and if we have a playground that's a tier 1 level, why is that not an emergency motion, and why can't we get that done? If that was supposed, when we did this budget, the impression from the Finance Committee and the Finance Commission, that was that these two items, the compost and the playground, were gonna be done. So if there's a holdup because the Winthrop Foundation, you know, I'm not saying they don't have all their ducks in a row, but the process hasn't begun yet.
Well, the
Which to
process-
consider something
I'll
more of an
remind the
emotion.
counselor that the foundation was established 2 years ago, and nobody did anything about it.
Right, it was
In fact-
established more than 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, and it just sat there, so we actually lost probably $1 million each year, or for 2 years. It was this council that got it moving forward. They've already had their first meeting, so this thing is gonna be starting to turn very shortly.
Well, that's my point. If it's gonna be starting to turn shortly, why can't, what makes something an emergency? And I'm all, you know, I just said, it's terrible that these people have their yard waste and everything else, that they can't put it. But we're talking about yard waste, and we're talking about potentially a dangerous accident to a kid. You know, they're both emergencies in my point, and probably the playground more so. So, you know, I would make an amendment to the motion if we're gonna do that, then that we should fund the playground also, and then take that money out of the Winthrop Foundation when it comes back to replace it.
Okay, so we have an amendment. Is this the second amendment?
The First Amendment wasn't voted, yeah, but I mean.
We have still discussing the second, the First Amendment. Any further discussion on the First Amendment? Yes, Councilor.
I think this seems like a knee-jerk reaction at this meeting right now, and I would like to see a more thoughtful approach to solving the problem. And so, you know, if the council feels like these items need attention immediately, why don't we request that the town manager and his department heads put together a plan and propose a couple of different options, rather than respond in a knee-jerk fashion right now.
Anything else wish to be heard?
My concern is that it may not be an issue at the expediency that may be health crisis, but yard waste around people's yards, flies, mosquitoes, all of these different issues that we have with, airborne bacteria from mosquitoes and stuff. I think it may become a serious emergency issue, and I think, it's got to be dealt with at some point. And the sooner we expedite, like you said, it's hurricane season, next thing you know, there's another storm. Where are we going to put it? On Ingleside?
It does need to be addressed, but I think we have the luxury of taking a week or two to come up with a thoughtful way to how to spend money.
Is the plans for the playground, has that been put out to bid yet? I know it's been put out to bid.
It hasn't been put out to bid, but I believe there was a spec'd out, like very close to final price that was presented by the superintendent.
$141,000 and change.
Yeah. So is that ready to go?
The work would still have to be bid out to an individual to accept the project, to take it on and tell us what their price would be to contract out the work. But yes, we'd have to bid out the project. It's an over $200,000 project.
Are you
it's
using
the
your point
RFP
of personal
process.
privilege to
You already have an RFP.
I will,
It
actually.
was already accepted.
Okay, the counselor is used her point of personal privilege to delay this vote. And any further discussion on these two items for the next council meeting. In the meantime, we can work with DPW and see if we can come up with, a fix. Anything else in your report?
No. Thank you.
A couple of questions. Maybe through the town manager to Steve. On Pleasant Street by the Atlantis Marina, was there a sinkhole there? Has that been addressed? Was there some sort of issue right in front of, between the Atlantis and the marina there?
Not a sinkhole, no, we're doing catch basin.
Catch basin? Just regular maintenance, so there wasn't an emergency?
Not-
Okay,
not-
because I've had a couple of
not-
residents from
yeah.
Tileston come in.
No,
You
we
thought
had
there was
a
a-
sewer repair up, further up on Pleasant Street, that was an emergency. The last was catch basin. They were needed.
Okay. And on the shed, we did discuss the Millerfield Committee is majority on board for doing the shed. We just want some more. We had a rough estimate, but we'd like them to potentially get in touch with us and go over a plan so we could come up with a feasibility argument. But we feel comfortable with the shed. And my last thing is on the, Council President discussed that there looks like a RFP might be put out in the fall for the middle school. Am I clear that my understanding of, do you intend to put the rink on the RFP? And go against the council wishes of the vote that was taken last year?
So, one, the council wishes are just a non-binding resolution, so I appreciate the council's wishes, and they come into every decision that I make in town. That said, under the charter, my office and my position is tasked with all the property that the town holds is under my purview. I think it would behoove the town to include options that include the ice rink in any potential proposals that come over. I think that that site is an all-encompass site, not just a building, site attached to an ice rink. But I understand the sacred cows that there are in town. So what I would like to express in the RFP is actually to express the public sentiment concerning the ice rink and the importance of the ice rink to the community, and why it is my thought process that the ice rink should not be included in this process. That said, I would be willing to entertain on behalf of the town a discussion of what would a project look like if it did include that site as well.
But if you're proposing to put out an RFP, I'm assuming you put a lot of thought into this. It's only a couple of months away that you're getting ready to do this, so you definitely have ideas of what you're putting in. And I think it would behoove the council to have us involved in these conversations and discussions.
Council President,
through the council president, but also through the whole council. I mean, the whole council is just, we're all important.
I understand that. Not one word of an RFP has been written, and the council will be involved in this process. The council president has been present at multiple meetings that I've had concerning the site. There's a long way to go before we put out an RFP. The town needs to decide what type of zoning they want for that site. It is undecided right now. So before I would ever put out an RFP, I want this community to decide what it wants that area zoned for, because some of the discussions we've had since I've been in town have been, I'd like to see them be a little bit more buttoned up and ironed out before we enter a process of putting out an RFP. So we've been doing the due diligence within my office to prepare what we need to for an RFP, but we are just having a conversation with the council president earlier today concerning the zoning of that site, because that is a discussion that this community needs to have in terms of taking control of the direction that they would like the town to go in as well.
Okay, because the rink has plans to stop building. We've paid for an architect. We have design plans that are in the final stages that we're looking at Monday, and we plan on breaking ground in the fall or in the spring for new locker rooms, which has been voted on by the council. So
there's no funding in place for that, though.
No, but there is funding available, and all we need is a funding source, which I've discussed with the CFO. I've discussed with you. You're well aware of the project.
I understand that, but just like I'm not going to make a unilateral decision on behalf of the town concerning this. I want the town incorporated and involved in this. I would hope that you, concerning the rink, wouldn't make a unilateral decision. I think it would be.
No, I think we had
extremely
many discussions on it and voted here as a council to appropriate $600,000, not from the town's money, from the rink to pay. Not that the taxpayers are paying it, the rink is paying it, the user. And that was voted on 2 years ago by the council. So we're just following through with that.
What is the funding source for that, though?
The funding source could be state bonds, state house bonds. It could be floating a bond. It could be either one. So it's supposed to be attached to the funding from the rink. It would, from the Center Business District when those bonds went out. That's where it was supposed to be done.
But so what all I'm saying is that right now is very similar to any project that I have in out years of a capital plan, that it is something that it is a hopefully to be planned on, but there isn't funding in place. I can talk about a lot of ideas about capital items in future years of the capital plan that I have ideas of how much it costs.
This is a capital investment for the rink, which has been voted on.
I understand that, but that would still be represented in our budget in terms of how we talk about and account for all of the money that's spent in town. Just because the council has said we have interest in improving the rink, if no money has been allocated or approved for that and it hasn't gone through the normal budgetary process, I'm not going to sign a contract with anyone to do any work on behalf of this office. The due diligence has not been done.
So you just choose not to go and fulfill the wishes of the council that were voted on? You know more than the council knows.
No, what I'm saying, my
well, that's
authority.
And I'll let it go there before I get bumped off. I have one more question. There's been a $150,000 payment from the ferry from fiscal 19. Did that ever come in?
No, it did not.
So are we in a deficit? How did we close the books?
We are not in a deficit. We are in contact with the Mass DEP about the fundings as well right now.
And we were told when we were doing the budget process that basically the check was in the mail.
I was under the same impression as well, and I feel like that was a miscommunication from an office, and my office has worked to rectify that and been in multiple instances of communication with that office concerning securing that funding since it was been brought to my attention.
So how was that account balanced out? Where did that money come from?
We're still balancing out fiscal 18 or fiscal 19 as we speak.
Okay, old business.
Actually, Town Council President.
I'm sorry, one more question.
Well, I was going to have a question for the town manager.
Nick, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Specifically regarding policies around advisory committees appointed by the town council.
Sure.
Specifically, I know that the Winthrop Airport Hazards Committee was told recently that they're not to contact Massport for requests for information without first going through your office.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering exactly what policy is it that states that, and what's the thinking behind that policy?
So the majority of committees in town are advisory committees, and they're to advise the council on specific topics. They are basically, it's supposed to be a binary relationship between the two, that they contact the council with things and the council asks them to report on things. They are supposed to advise the council. and the council and my office is supposed to have the direct relationships with the other levels of government or other government bodies type of thing.
But we're not talking about any of these advisory committees creating policies or entering into binding agreements with Massport. We're just talking about them asking for information from Massport.
Personally, I've spoken about this with the council president. I would feel more comfortable if it came from my office the majority of the time. I want to.
But why?
I want all communications from town kind of coming from unified sources instead of someone from an airport hazards committee or any committee reaching out to someone at state level office and the person at state level office then calling my office and saying, who's this person? Why would they ask me about this? Why isn't your office just asking about this? I just want to clean up that extra step and not have to have that extra conversation. If it comes through my office, then we know what's going out and coming in.
Well, sort of, I completely agree with you that we should be cleaning up this process and eliminating steps, and that's why I want to give the Airport Hazards Committee all the tools that it needs to advocate on behalf of Winthrop. And to me, that sounds like an extra layer of bureaucracy that we're adding in there. And
So
I just
the
don't see the
Airport
point
Hazards
to that.
Committee is just an advisory committee to the council. That's the issue. And the Transportation Advisory Committee, we have advisory committees that advise the council and report directly to the council. They have no real standing with these other government entities. We're lucky that the other government entities interact with them from time to time, but those other government entities do not owe anything to an advisory committee in Winthrop. They are here to advise your council on specific items.
I think it makes as much sense as possible to have these committees empowered. When I'm woken up every morning before 6 a.m. by Massport, I want this committee to have the power it needs to only ask for information from them. So with that, Town Council President, I'd like to make a motion that it is the Town Council policy that advisory committees shall not be prohibited from requesting information from governmental agencies, further that any such contradictory sections of previous policies is void, and further that the town manager is hereby instructed to do the same with any applicable policies from the town manager's office.
Councilor, your motion is out of order because it's not on the agenda.
Well, actually, Town Council President, I noticed you just allowed a motion from Councilor Lettieri regarding another subject that wasn't on the agenda either. So I'm not really seeing how that's sort of consistent.
That was an emergency situation because of the problem at DPW. Now, I'll drill in a little further on the situation with the Airport Hazards Committee, because I was the one that sent them the email, okay? Someone on that committee, not the committee itself, made a request by email to Massport for information. They were looking for all types of agreements and so forth. The point is that any committee that we have as an advisory committee has to work as a committee, not individually. So they need to have a meeting, and the meeting is an open meeting. They have to subscribe to the open meeting laws. They have to, if someone makes a request, if a committee person wants information regarding, let's say, Massport, whatever the information they want, someone has to make a motion. I make a motion that we ask Massport for this, and they have to go through a whole process of voting. It's got to be part of the open, everything's got to be in the open. It can't be individually by a person that is on the committee. That was my first point. The second point is that we can't all, if we have all these advisory committees in Winthrop sending letters to the Department of Education, to Massport, to MWRA, they're going to say, what's going on in Winthrop? Where is the leadership? It has to be funneled through one office. And that's the point. It's not that we don't want them to have the information. It's not that we don't think they need the information. It needs to be funneled through a central point. And that's the reason why I sent that letter.
I completely agree with you that it should be voted on by the committee and that it should go through the chair and be documented in the minutes. The part that I disagree with is that it should then have to go through the town manager's office for approval. I just don't think that that's empowering our committees to do the work that we need them to do.
Well, I would open up, his motion has been made. Does somebody want to second his motion? And we can have a discussion on it.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion on the motion.
I don't think it's a terrible idea to have a standardized process for our committees. I do think a lot of the documentation and information that's being requested of Massport is a matter of public record that any citizen has the ability to request. So, that, if to the extent that there's an ability to streamline the process and give folks who have the time and the interest and the motivation to do the work, I think it would be helpful.
Council? I don't really have a problem with the motion either. I'd have to read it actually before I say that. But at the end of the, I think in essence, I believe in
what a lot of what you just said, that we need some type of a process. I would like to see this go through a committee process so that it's cleaned up and made sure that if we're going to make some sort of a long-term rule that this council or the town's going to abide by, that it be flushed out through the process. And I would make a motion to send this motion to Rules and Ordinances Committee before we vote on it as a full council.
I think it's the Committee on Committees.
Or the committee,
Whichever.
appropriate committee is fine.
Go to rules.
No, it's just.
Yeah, and
Yeah, this is a bigger thing than.
Yeah, so,
It's my understanding, charter, there's standing committees and then there's advisory committees. And there's different powers with each of them.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is you would want that to be a standing committee as opposed to a advisory committee. So I think there's a way that it could be done without.
Well, Councilor Farino, I sort of disagree with that assessment. I'm just looking to empower advisory committees to be able to ask for information from government agencies, not to set policy, not to make binding negotiations and agreements, just to ask for information to help town government out. It sort of seems to me like we need all the help we can get.
Right, and this isn't an issue just for the Airport Hazards Committee. This comes up consistently with the Transportation Committee as well. So maybe it does make sense to send this to the Committee on Committees to take a look at the process if we need to have a more clearly stated process.
I understand
yeah,
streamline.
so I'm going to use my personal privilege as well, since this has just come up, to put this off and have us vet it a little bit more and come up with a plan, and then we can look at it and decide what we need to do.
So not sent to a committee?
Send it to whatever we decide to do, whether it goes to a committee, is an open meeting, whatever it is. I mean, I think we need to look at it more closely before we go ahead and vote on this motion right now.
Councilor Callum, maybe may I request that you take back that personal privilege point and instead we send it to the Committee on Committees for their review so we can at least start the process to look at this.
Would that be an amendment?
I would support Councilor Christopher's
I would
amendment.
second.
Okay, so we have the original motion amended by Counselor to send it to Committee on Committees.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. If Councilor Caller is willing to withdraw her point of personal privilege.
We need a second on Counselor's amendment.
Second.
Okay. Let's first vote on the amended motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Now on the main motion. Do I want you to read it?
Yeah, I don't know what you...
That this go to the Committee on Committee. You want to read
So
your
that it
motion?
would, so
Okay.
the following would go to Committee on Committees, that it be the town council policy that advisory committees shall not be prohibited from requesting information from governmental agencies. Further, that any such contradictory section of previous policies is void, and further, that the town manager is hereby instructed to do the same with any applicable policies from the town manager's office. And I'm happy to provide that in writing, Denise, after the meeting.
Thank you, Counselor. Any discussion? Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
And one, no.
Council President, can I just ask Council Clerk to add that to the agenda for August 28th and ask Councilor LaConte to be present at that so he can explain it better to me?
Actually, I'll be out of town on August 28th, but
Okay.
I'll email you a full summary.
Okay.
I just had one more question for the town manager.
Yes, sir.
Last meeting, I asked about a catch basin clean-out schedule. You were going to get back to me. And
It's regular maintenance. I mean, we're out there doing catch basins year round. There's not a specific maintenance schedule to it. I can tell you that we've worked on the entire, we're in the Upper Highlands right now. We did the Maze route. We've done the Center Business District. So we're going plow route to plow route. That's basically how, my department divides up the town. We have 11 plow routes, 11 areas in town. And this is what we do, is just a rotating schedule, and we move on. Of course, when trouble areas pop up in the interim, different neighborhoods, we obviously go over and we'll take care of that. But it's not a, June, this particular catch basin gets cleaned. It's just a rotating schedule. There's 750 catch basins out there.
No, my concern is the high-volume water areas that have been pooling, and, that was basically my question. Are those more of a preference to what you just said it, so?
Absolutely, yeah. But it's not necessarily a catch basin being cleaned. It causes the pooling. I mean, we have a lot of infrastructure out there that is undersized, which is, there's an area on Emerson Road, which we get constant calls. We have numerous catch basins in that area. The water, it's just like trying to get in a 5-gallon bucket and pour it into a sink. It takes a little while to get down through the drain. You're restricted by the plumbing, so it's not always that the catch basin's full or dirty. It's just that sometimes the high volume of a particular rainfall takes time for the system to take it in and drain. Right?
Thank you. Council.
And I just wanted to Steve, who the town manager, just again echo the sentiments from before, thanking you for that incredible action to the microburst. On Ingleside Park, there were numerous trees in the park down, and within 2 days they were gone. Incredible efforts. I know you guys worked their butts off, and I appreciate that. Can you tell me how many trees were down in the town and a little of the events that...
Full trees that went down,
yeah.
We lost 15 full trees, and then numerous branches, large limbs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under old business discussion, we're going to table the marijuana ballot question. Councilor Boncory's committee hasn't finalized the question for the ballot. On item B, Parks and Rec location, Councilor.
We had a walkthrough. We had a joint meeting, capital assets and finance, last week. We had a first part of the meeting at the middle school gymnasium. We had the second part of the meeting at the E.B. Newton Lyceum room. We did a walkthrough present with myself, Councilor Farino, Parks and Rec Director Driscoll, and Rich Stefuni. We walked through, we all pretty much know the site, but it's amazing when you're walking through how much stuff you don't really realize and how vast that area is. I think the discussion was, is it feasible to make a home for Parks and Rec there? That was the initial request. Not that location was the initial request. The initial request was to look for a location. I think what we came to is we don't have the expertise and knowledge to. We had a study done a year and a half ago that said 150 to 200,000 was the amount of money to get that looking nice and doing this and doing that. And then Councilor Farino had items from years ago that could be $1 million or more, or not even feasible. I did reach out to an architect, and he's going to get back to us just to see if it's something, if we're really considering a location there or considering that building at all. I think it would behoove us. I don't think I could definitely speak for myself, not being an expert, and most of us, saying that it would behoove us to get somebody in there if it's something that we were considering, to say, hey, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, handicap accessibility, bathroom issues, heating issues, electricity issues, and such. I know, being on the school building committee, that we put over $600,000 into that gym in 5 years ago. So it would really disappoint me and the taxpayers that we just blow up that building. So I think we're going to have a follow-up meeting. We obviously were not able to come up with answers, but I think we all agreed that we didn't have the expertise needed. To me, it might be just, if you paint this, but there's walls involved, there's rooms involved, there's showers involved, there's facilities used by different people involved. So it's a process, and we will have another meeting in the near future and get back to us on this.
Any discussion? Comments? I just want to kind of dovetail this thing. We keep getting the question, what's going on with the middle school? What's going on with the middle school? It's been 2013, they know the middle school was not going to be needed anymore. And here we are in 2019, and it's like a slow crawl. It keeps getting kicked down the road, and we keep talking about investing more money into the building. When I ran, I said, whatever we do down there, we need some type of recreation center for the kids in this town, which we do need. I guess the point I'm trying to make, instead of trying to find how much it's going to cost to make this thing work and make it suitable for Parks and Rec, I hope we're thinking about an alternate location. I mean, we are down a gymnasium since we built the new middle school. We do need a home for Parks and Rec, but it may not necessarily have to be in that building. We have, just as an example, the St. John's building has been relatively vacant upstairs where all the classrooms are. The Archdiocese has been spinning off all types of property and selling property. Why don't we approach the Archdiocese? Let's look into alternative locations, because the more we keep about putting money into the buildings, the more problem we're going to have getting this thing developed. Tonight we're going to talk very briefly about, the CBD, because we just have to take that and refer it back to the planning board. Then we get into a discussion with the planning board at a public hearing to the nitty-gritty. Why don't we include the middle school site? A point was made earlier tonight, and I thought that, who was it that made? Joe's son, Chris. Chris made a good point about the CBD. Instead of making it the same CBD, maybe CBDB with certain, restrictions and non-restrictions. So I guess the point I'm trying to make, I understand, especially, youth activities, we need it, but we have to start thinking of alternative locations to make this place more attractive to a developer. That's just the point I wanted to make. Under new business, Town Council transfers $25,000 from the Town Council Reserve Water and Sewer Rate Cost Study. I'll entertain a motion to refer to Finance.
Motion.
Motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Town Council transfers $15,000 to Town Council Reserve, the Harvey Hearing Room restructuring.
Motion to refer.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Town Council transfers $10,000 from the Town Council Reserve. I'm not going to read that one. Agenda Communication Software.
Motion to refer.
Motion to refer.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Town Council transfers $4,000 from group insurance town line to the fuel line in preparations for the FY19 closing.
Motion to refer.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Town Manager declare surplus of the remaining items at the Winthrop Middle School. Motion to refer to Finance.
Motion to refer.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 7, I'm going to refer to Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Council President. So this is a motion coming out of the committee, subcommittee on Public Works. It looks like maybe it was transcribed a little imperfectly in our packet. So the exact text of the motion coming out of the committee is to recommend to the full council that the town manager be instructed to determine the feasibility of a painted bike lane on Veterans Road and report back to the council on the feasibility of such by the subsequent council meeting. So in other words, it would set the metric to have a report back by our next council meeting, which in this case would be September 3rd, 3 weeks away.
Okay, a motion is made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'm not a committee, we'll do a second.
Any discussion on the motion?
I'd like to have a question. Is that a feasible timeline for your office to come up with a recommendation?
We can look into the cost of the painted bike lanes. That cost that would be incurred would most likely be talking about paint versus a thermoplastic surface.
Can I
those sorts of things.
speak briefly
Sure.
to Veterans Road? I have spent some time walking Veterans Road, measuring out, the surface area, the lane widths. That said, it is feasible to paint the bike lane on Veterans Road. You will have to lose parking. You will have to potentially consider a one-way direction. I mean, a true designated bike lane is 6 feet. So if you want to maintain 11-foot lane widths, you only have 26 feet of surface area there. So I asked the council, yeah, it's feasible. Are you willing to give up parking on Veterans Road? Painting the line is not something, I can say that's feasible, easy to do, easy to designate a lane, not under the current conditions of the roadway and the use of the roadway.
Is this something that may want to go through the Transportation Safety Committee first?
No, this is a feasibility study that we want conducted We want to know the pros and the cons. We want the council to make a fact-based
I
decision.
understand that. What I'm saying is that there's going to be a cost associated with that. So is it something that you would like funded and looked at through this committee that has our police chiefs on it, our DPW director? My office, I don't have an engineer on it, so the money's going to go out type of thing to do a feasibility study, and I don't have a funding source for this right this minute. So it's something that I'd have to work on. So I'm just saying I understand the urgency, and I'm understanding that you would like this done in a short period of time. What I'm just trying to discuss is that with the limitations of the budget, it's not something I can just turn around and say what's feasible here. It's a project that I need to talk with engineers about what does it look like in terms of costs. So.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the feasibility study that your office puts together, and whether or not you decide to consult any specific committees, I'll leave up to your office.
If I may, Council President. Sure. I think what would be really helpful is if we could have just an in-house summary of what the pros and the cons are, what the cost would be if we need to hire an engineer.
I can come up with that. But just for example, so Pleasant and Main, that intersection, just to have a feasibility study done on that is around $25,000. So this is not like I make a call and say paint it green and it gets painted green. This is traffic engineers being involved and traffic counts and all those type of things as well to do this correctly. So all I'm saying is that type of thing, easy. I can come up with pros and cons and talking about price per square foot of the work and that type of stuff on it. The real feasibility study of it, though, is a more labor-intensive process. I just want to put that out.
I apologize if I use the wording correctly, but I'm thinking the exact same thing that Councilor Engman said.
Pros and cons,
in-house analysis first.
And I think
come up with
it's
that.
important to find out how many parking spaces would be eliminated.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be rough, but
Right.
we can get that back. That's not a problem.
Okay. Any further discussion, Council?
Can we also, because that's also snow emergency parking, right?
It's snow emergency
And
parking. I
how-
guess I'm just trying to understand, I mean, there's the shared lanes, right? We know we can put shared lanes on that roadway. If you want, are you asking for the feasibility of a designated 6-foot bike lane? Is that what you're asking for?
I'm asking for the feasibility of a painted bike lane on Veterans Road.
It can happen.
Cool.
But you have to lose parking.
Well, that sounds like
and-
quicker than a
and
3-week
make it a
feasibility
one-way road.
study.
Isn't there only parking on one side
That's
of the street?
better discussion.
Let's hear the pros and cons out of an internal discussion of how many parking spots we would lose, how much it would cost, how much is the paint. Let's find out.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
just like the pros and cons to include the parking and to include the
Absolutely.
effects of the snow parking and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And also,
Parking's critical.
the mitigation we had with the MWRA to use that as a route to transport chemicals or whatever is down on Dare Island.
Yeah.
If we have an agreement with them, and is that feasible that we could put a bike lane on Veterans Road?
We can do a very high level one first, and
We'll
then
look at it.
I also do think it would be prudent for the transportation safety to look at this as well, but that is just my opinion. So we can give you the high level, and you all can take it from there.
Good.
Yeah,
Any
you should-
further discussion?
Well, can I then, again,
Yes, you
use
can.
my personal privilege to let this go to the Transportation Commission? to-
That's okay. I think going this higher level is okay for
Yeah.
now,
You're
and we
okay with
can
that?
see where it takes it from there.
Yeah. Let's just get the ball moving. Okay?
Yep.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Next, Nick.
Okay, so the next thing is something very similar, only looking at gravel paths through Lewis Lake Park. So the text of the motion is recommend to the full council that the town manager be instructed to determine the feasibility of a crushed stone or gravel bike lane between the Norman F. Daw Playground and Winthrop Golf Course, running over the Lewis Lake pedestrian bridge and connecting to Lewis and Willow Ave, and report back to the council on the feasibility of such by the subsequent council meeting. And again, just to specify, I'm talking about the high level that Councilor Engman articulated.
Okay, that's out of committee. Doesn't need a second. I remember this time. Any discussion on the motion?
And this is, we're going through the same thing, just an in-house feasibility.
High level, yeah.
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Any impact on conservation on that?
I think conservation
Yeah.
has to
Can you just ask
That'll be in the
to
study.
find out that also?
Conservation.
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
both of those are kind of.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Certainly.
Since we're into feasibilities, and you mentioned Maine and Pleasant, that is something that we can't obviously do right now, but, you know, I've asked for that for the last couple of years. I saw 3 accidents last week, almost 3 accidents. It's just an accident waiting to happen. We talk about hazards in the community. To me, that's one that.
For Maine and Pleasant?
Utmost. Maine and Pleasant, across from Woodside and Dunkin' Donuts, that area there is just, you know, you don't have 2 lanes, but you have people sneaking up on the right, you have people cutting over, you have people walking across the street. It's just an accident waiting to happen.
No, that's specifically why I asked for the earmark from the governor's budget concerning it. It's gonna be a ton of work there. No question. It's a complete reconstruction of it. But we need the feasibility to get a better understanding of how much we're looking at in terms of cost. We need an updated track count number and things like that, so that will come from it. We've asked the state to look at 145, all of 145 through Winthrop in terms of a capital project, not a TIP project. And that luckily got included in what we're looking at. That doesn't mean they're going to fund it or anything like that. But we're trying to pinch off little pieces of money so we can get the feasibility done for it, get to a certain amount of design for some of these things. So similar to Ingleside, we have that at 30% design, and now we're trying to knock the governor's door about the environmental bond bill, saying we got to this point, give us the money so we can get finished and we can get working on it. We want to get the roads in the same condition because we had Revere Street done last year. We have another section of Revere Street in 2023. We want to try to have some certainty on the work that's going to be done in town over the next 5 years. And I think that's Steve and I's intent with the budget going forward is here are the roads that are going to be taken care of this year, next year, those types of things. And
I would like to see Massport potentially help us with that because part of their recreation of that property in the Boston side where Belle Isle used to be and the gas station used to be has now created this congestion. And it's right over their flight path. So maybe they'd be willing to help us.
So we just had the Winthrop Foundation stuff kind of finally come into play. They're going to soon be giving us money for that, in addition to the normal pilot agreement that we had with them. We're going to get another bite at that apple as well because they're looking to modernize all the transportation that's associated with the airport, and that's just feasibility for that, or just design for that, was a $230 million design project. So it's going to be a multiple billion-dollar tram project, things like that. We will get a bite of the apple at them as well at that to try to get another chance to engage with them about additional funding as well. So we're always trying to have open communications with them about how to improve Winthrop.
All set?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. This motion was submitted by the town clerk, Carla Vitale, that the town council form a complete count committee to work with the U.S. Census Bureau to accurately complete the 2020 census. The town council designee for the chair of this committee will be town clerk Carla Vitale. Now, the reason for this, it is very, very important during the census that we get a proper count in Winthrop, because lots of times when you apply for grants and so forth, it goes by population and so forth. So that's the reason why this committee is so important. Any information regarding this is actually on the town website. So I need the motion has been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Can you just tell me what the committee would consist of? Numbers, who would appoint them?
They're already.
I know they're in there. Oh, they're already in there.
Yeah. You got the town council's designee, Carla Vitale, town manager's designee, Joanne D'Amato, superintendent, Tino Capobianco, youth committee designee, council on aging designee, community group business designee, Betsy Shane, town department designee. There's several from the Winthrop Library. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. You all received in your packages the recommendations from the planning board relative to CBD. Okay? The way the process works is tonight we accept the proposal and we refer it back to the planning board and set a date for a joint public hearing. I know the town manager you wanted to say a few words before we vote on this? about how you feel. I made
Sure.
my feelings known earlier regarding this, that we need to try to make sure that when we vote for the new CBD, that we include the middle school site and not make it separate. Because it'll help, the process will be more cumbersome
Sure.
for the RFP.
Again, I want to be agnostic on this and not interject my opinion as much as possible. I think that this is a big change to the zoning map in town. I think that when you take on the mindset of working through something like this, you don't nibble at it, you take on the bigger project. The middle school site, going back to the master planning process for the Center Business District, it originally included the middle school project. This is something that will happen timing-wise very close. You would want some type of continuity between that site and whatever developers are looking to do in the Center Business District as well. I dream of a day that you can look from French Square and actually see Ingleside, however that building gets broken up or something like that. I think it would be great to have it included in the same zoning, but that's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. I think that if it's not included in the zoning, you may run into the issue of potentially spot zoning. If you put the wrong type of overlay in, you could open yourselves up to some trouble if it's not included this time in, and then based off of a bid that we get or something like that, we change the zoning accordingly to try to fit the zoning to a bid rather than have the zoning in place and make the bids fit the zoning that we have in place. So just my short,
As far as tonight's vote has nothing to do with the town manager just said. He was giving you his opinion. We can bring that up when we have the public hearing, and that's when we get into that whole discussion. So I will read the motion. That the town council, pursuant to the rules and procedures of the Winthrop Town Council, governed by the Winthrop Charter and Massachusetts General Law 40A, Section 5, zoning, has received a proposal from the Winthrop Planning Board in reference to the current zoning map, inclusive of the Center Business District. The town council refers this proposal back to the planning board to schedule a joint public hearing between the town council and the planning board for an open public discussion or take any other action thereto. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion.
Council President?
Yes, sir.
I was just hoping for a clarification on the process. So this is us sort of kicking it back to this joint meeting. And at this joint meeting, we hear from the public, but then do we vote on it?
Yes.
And are we voting on it like as a collective town council and planning board? Or
question.
just as the town council?
Just the town
Okay.
council.
So this is just a procedural step to have that
Yep.
hearing. Got it. Thank you.
Okay? Anyone else wish to be heard?
Can we just ask the town manager maybe to give a synopsis, there's people in the room that might not know what we're voting on, how it might change or differ than what we currently have?
Tonight you're just voting back to the committee what the committee had proposed.
really
So this is, I don't feel appropriate to weigh in on it and kind of talk about the changes of it. I think that would come up in that
Okay,
next
so I
meeting.
guess I'll say, there's several members here that live in that area. My understanding reading this is that the houses are not, under this plan, are not in the CBD. Is my understanding, is that accurate?
Yeah,
to
I
everybody
think,
here?
I think many of these residents have been at, you were at the planning board meeting the last time when they actually voted on this, were you not?
Yes.
Okay, so it's,
We had a couple of issues.
So you're saying it's still undecided? This is, okay, but this map is not,
It's not, the map has not been voted on, so at the joint meeting.
but we're sending them back with this
Or we're gonna send a
recommendation.
proposal back, then at the joint, you'll add, and during that, you'll add.
any further discussion?
President Becker?
Yes, sir.
Just follow up on what Nick said. It's just going to be the town council votes. Will that be at the joint meeting between the board and the council?
It
Doesn't
can be.
have to be. It
It
doesn't
can
have
be,
to
yeah.
It can be, but it doesn't have to be?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 You want to take a roll call? Take a roll call.
Counselor Inman?
Yes.
Counselor Callow? Yes. Counselor Christopher?
Yes.
Counselor Buck-Corey? Counselor DeMarco?
Yes.
Counselor Farino?
Yes.
Counselor Conti?
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
President Vecchio?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda. I did receive a letter from a resident of Winthrop that was proposing the naming of a Richard Honan Park on DCR property up on the beach. And the letter is in the packet. Basically, the individual contacted the Speaker's office and asked the procedure. And the Speaker's office got back to us and said basically he would be willing to just proceed with the recommendation and talk to DCR and so forth, but it needs the blessing of the town council. So I'm going to read the motion. That the town council support that the Winthrop resident Richard D. Honan be appropriately honored in that the state-owned newly built park and ocean overlook on Winthrop Shore Drive below the Norma Petrillo Boulevard be named the Richard D. Honan Park, or take any action thereto. Do I hear a second on the motion? Okay, so again, the discussion is us just giving us the blessing so that the Speaker's office can proceed with it. It's not on town property, so it does not have to go through the normal process of going through the, Memorials Committee. Any further discussion? Yes.
I'll just say that I can't think of a citizen more deserving of any honor than Richard.
No doubt.
Agreed. Very appropriate area to name after Richard.
Okay. Hearing that, I'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. You'll have to hold that.
Council President?
That the town council accept the appointment made by town council president to appoint Mary Christophe as a member of the Winthrop Cultural Council, or take any other action thereto.
The motion on the table, is there a second? Second, any discussion on the motion? I will say I'm very happy to support Mary. I think she does a tremendous job in everything she does. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Congratulations, Mary.
Okay, kind of already talked about this?
Yes.
All right.
Can I circle back on one thing in the manager's report?
Pardon me?
Can I circle back to my manager's report
Sure.
on one thing? I apologize for not bringing this up earlier. I have been talking about, since my budget presentation, about the formation of a zero waste managers committee concerning our solid waste. The contract is up next summer. This is important to everyone in town, and I've been doing my due diligence in the background concerning setting up individuals that will come and meet with this committee, help walk them through this process, help them decide the parameters that we want to put Winthrop in with how we deal with our solid waste. So my administrative assistant, Larissa, has been getting in touch with these individuals, but I just wanted to make them known publicly. And if they don't want to do it, I am fine with that too. We can find replacements. But Charles Southworth, Carol Walker, Mary Alish, Sharkley, Don Quirk. There we go. Don Quirk, Tracy Honan, who may not want to do it since of some other information I've heard recently. Steve Calla, the CFO, Anna Friedman, and Rob. You can step up and join your first new committee. So they hopefully will have some work done, some type of report that we can incorporate with the budget and different votes that the council may have to take concerning the funding of a different contract and a different form of waste pickup. But that is stuff that we're going to start working on in the background and have kind of come up with the budget process as well.
Can I just ask, has Capital Waste started asking what our intentions are, or?
No, they haven't engaged in the process. Yeah, I mean, to a point,
They've reached out in the sense that, they're interested in
maintaining.
Yeah, maintaining a contract, and certainly probably bid on whatever future.
Yeah, so they're going to, and it's going to be spliced up a little bit. So it's just going to be how we communicate this. Someone could want to take it all on. The way we may be setting it up may not be beneficial for a company to take on, or we may be giving a company part of it and having another company handle other parts of it. There's multiple operators in the compost industry right now. There's multiple operators in the textile pickup industry and stuff like that. So the recycling, if we were even gonna sort our recycling potentially, and the waste are one part, and then there's the other parts too. So that, again, that's why I want a committee to work on this and kind of help guide. There has to be discussion about the size of the waste barrels and things like that, that, again, I'm agnostic on. I want these committees to help guide the decision-making process. Thank you.
Okay, public comment. Yes.
I'm not Annie Friesen-Blake. I just made a bunch of notes while we were discussing. First thing I would like to talk about immediately is the Massport information and receiving information through the town manager's office. On July 9th, I sent a public information request for a copy of the Massport expansion package. On July 10th, I received a copy from the town. On July 25th, I responded back to the clerk's office that it was not a fully executed copy. It was missing several exhibits, and the clerk responded to me. That was what she received from the town manager. In the meantime, I had contacted Massport myself and received a copy and Facebooked it. So I think the town manager was a little upset that the copy I got from the town manager was not a full copy, and I went to Massport myself to get a public document. So that was one thing. Not receiving a full document that was signed on May 19th by the town, and then had to go to Massport to actually get my public document. I didn't think that was very nice at all by the town, and I know it was not the town clerk, because she said that's what she was given by the town manager. I do not appreciate not getting my public information directly from the town that I asked for and have to go to an outside source to get it. Okay. Second of all, on the Winthrop page, under the town ferry, it was stated that the insurance would cover the engine replacement, and now it was just said that we are talking to the insurer to see if there is a claim. So are you saying on a ferry that is only a couple years old, we are not covered for a brand new engine? So $55,000 is what you're saying it cost the taxpayers to replace the engine right now. That's the number I'm gonna go with, and I don't see anybody objecting that. So $55,000, the taxpayers are in the hole right now. So we're paying the company $40,000 a year to maintain the DPW yard.
No,
I don't.
We haven't yet, we haven't got that money.
That's what we were allocated, I'm sorry, Steve, I just want to make sure I get this right. So we were allocated in 2016, $115,000 first, and then it was talked about that we were going to be allocated more money again in 2 more years for a second round to try to keep up with it, and now we're stuck.
Am I allowed to talk?
Sure.
We were supposed to get 2 consecutive years of $150,000.
150.
We got $150,000 in 2016.
15.
We never got the second $150,000, and then, of course, we never got the annual $40,000 to keep up with the maintenance after the initial cleanups.
Okay, so it's an annual $40,000. Okay, I heard that you want to take that from the Winthrop Fund. I believe the Winthrop Fund had said we will not be using any reoccurring costs in that. Now let's talk about that Winthrop Fund for a minute, because it's not up and running. And in order to receive any money from the Winthrop Fund, you have to fill out a grant. So I want to make sure everybody at town understands you have to fill out a grant. So how is it that we have all this money earmarked? Now don't get me wrong, because everybody knows that I want that playground fixed more than anybody. So the first money I want spent is on that playground. But how can we have money earmarked if people have to write grants for it? And how many grants are going to be written for that playground? So we have the playground that has money earmarked. We talked about $40,000 a year, which I'm not gonna say any names, because, I appreciate that, but, we talked about no reoccurring cost was coming out of this fund. That was 100% said over and over at every single meeting I have been to yet. So I was trying to read that in the documents somewhere, but I do believe, I'm sorry that Mr. Malios left, that was said, no reoccurring costs would come out of that, and there is nobody here on that fund to back me up on that. Well, I will make sure that I have proof the next meeting to say that. Capital the capital stabilization money. So we had two separate monies. We had capital stabilization money, we had free cash, we had money from the council. I have to agree, if we have all this free money, why isn't the playground being fixed more than anything? Not that the DPW isn't super important too, but we're talking about people's lives, and that is number one. But the thing that really irritated me the most is not getting my public info straight from the town, a fully executive copy that I actually had to go to Massport and get it. And then I received the copy at the second meeting when I went, the correct copy. But I already had a copy from Massport, not the town. I think that's not okay, and I'm not sure if that's against the law, but it might be, and if it's not, it should be. It's public information, and the town has no right to hold out.
Anybody else wish to be heard? Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the bike path is concerned, if you designate an area for a bike path, say on Veterans Road, I don't know what side you want to put it on. Most of the accidents, lethal accidents that I read about in Cambridge and Somerville are tractor trailers that can't see a person on a bike. And there certainly is a number of tractor trailers that use that road. If you designate a pathway, you can paint it green or whatever you want to do down here. If a biker is on that pathway and gets flattened by a methane truck, whose problem is it, besides the person that got flattened? If we designate an area, are they then going to have reason to hold the person that painted that bike path? It's supposed to be safe in a bike path, but if you put it on the west side of Veterans Road, I've seen many times on Shore Drive, people park on Shore Drive and they open their driver's side door and hit bikers on Shore Drive. I've seen it happen 3 times myself. It must have happened over the years numerous times. On Veterans Road, if you put it on the west side of Veterans Road, you're going to have that same problem. I once was in Cambridge and I wasn't familiar with the territory. There's a bike path over there. I just opened the passenger side door, I believe, but I wasn't familiar with the situation, so I got cursed very quickly. The door was only half open, and then I realized that I was going against protocol. But I think it's going to take a long time to make people understand that they're in jeopardy if you put the bike path on the western or the golf course side of Veterans Road. I think biking is dangerous in this town. I've biked here for forever. And of course, everybody has close calls. But I think that's the wrong place. Veterans Road is the wrong place to put a bike path. As far as the middle school site, it's been stated by the town manager and by Mr. Beck here that the site should be carefully thought about, because it's a park. I've documented that with the town council and other people. And town managers mentioned at one meeting, I think it was the last meeting, that an open and fair process to use that property would be Article 97, disposition of land. It's an open and fair process. It's a law in the state of Massachusetts, especially since Ingleside Park was given a grant to improve the park by about $1 million by Virginia Wilder 20 years ago. And once you accept a grant to improve a park, that makes it all more difficult to use it for the park for a different determination, or whatever you want to use it for. If you then get a grant and then decide not to develop it or something, which I think is preposterous as a resident, then you lose rights to get further grants for the town. I don't know if anybody has read Article 97, disposition of land, but you should certainly make yourself aware of that fact. There was a proposal last year to put a development on that parcel of land. A grandiose proposal extending down Walden Street, extending down Waldemar Ave, the whole length of Pauline Street. And there are requests for proposals there to sell the property to a developer. If a developer bought that property, he would use the rules that are in place in the Center Business District to build a building 48 feet high on the sidewalk. When we saw the proposal at that meeting that Ron had, with no parking, because it's in the Center Business District. So once you sell that property, that developer has the right to build a building with no parking. We're losing parking spaces here or there again. And if you say, well, we really didn't mean there's no parking, we want you to have parking. Well, the developer bought that property because of the rules that are in place. And he's going to stick to them. So you'll have no say about whether or not he should supply some parking or not. The rule is that you can make a one-time payment of $2,000 and not have parking for your development. I would like to see, have somebody start the process of Article 97 disposition of land, because it is a park. You have mentioned it, there's a delicate situation. The town managers mentioned it, that it's a good idea to follow the process of Article 97, but I don't hear any more talk about it.
This is what we're doing with the tax title research for the entire site. This is included in it, Article 97 disposition.
So the only information that this town has is me saying this and then you answering me. Where's the open and fair process about it? You said at this meeting, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, it was stated that he's putting out requests for proposals for a development on that property.
Not yet. Not yet.
You mentioned it.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen.
Where is the open and fair
until
process in that? Do we get memos? Do we know what's going down there? Do I have to ask for freedom of information for all the talk?
Nothing's going down there, Jack. Nothing's going down there right now. Right now, we're researching the site. Okay? The other one that brought it up early on about the fact that it's probably on parkland. That's part of the title search and
Well,
going
when
into
is somebody
this.
going to start talking about going through the process, which is a state law, of using Article 97 disposition of land to start the process of what land you can use there?
That's what we're
is
doing.
park?
That's what we're doing.
I didn't hear that from anybody tonight.
That's the tax title research that we're having being done by our
What's
outside legal counsel. Yes, we sent the information that you sent to my office directly to them. We want your information included in this. All I
Did you
want
ask me
is...
to come to a meeting?
No, I represented your information that you had sent me.
I don't know that.
Oh, okay. Well,
All right,
I
Jack,
don't
you've been
know how I
well
can
over 3 minutes,
prove
Jack.
that.
Let's see if somebody else wants to speak, okay?
Let's see if somebody else wants to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay, thank you. Councils? Anybody wish to be heard on council? Yes.
I'm gonna have a neighborhood meeting on the 27th here in the Harvey Room to go over the CBD zoning map, to solicit some public feedback from people in the neighborhood or outside the neighborhood. Anybody's welcome to come. I hope to see everybody there. I have it at 6:30.
Anybody else? Yes.
The Harbor City Church completed their second annual soccer nights a couple weeks ago, and they've done a fantastic job helping out in the community and cleaning up the town. And I just wanted to mention them and give them the credit that they deserve because they've been outstanding.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just a reminder that there is precinct 4. There is an opening. Nobody has taken out nomination papers. If you're interested, if you live in precinct 4, please come to the town clerk's office. You need 50 certified signatures. Papers have to be filed by September 17th. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.